Welcome to Biblical Greek. In today's lesson, we're going to be discussing the various signs, markings in the Greek letters. So we're going to focus on punctuation. We're going to focus on breathing marks and accents, and even something known as the Iota Subscript. But first, let's begin with the breathing marks. There is no H sound in Greek. There is no H sound. But what we do have are what's known as rough breathing and smooth breathing signs. So for rough breathing, imagine this opening inverted comma. So for rough breathing, it would look like this. Okay? Of course, without the parentheses around it. For smooth breathing, again, it is the closing inverted comma. And I'm putting it in parentheses. Although, of course, as you know, the parentheses will not be there. It'll just be those signs. Okay? If the letters would be right here. In classical Greek, Erasmian pronunciation, the rough breathing had the H sound. For example, ha. Okay, if I were to put that right here, that would be ha. Or ha. With that rough breathing symbol becomes ha. Or another example would be this one right here, which is hen, which means one. So that's where you see how rough breathing sounds worked in classical or Erasmian pronunciation. Again, in the smooth breathing, of course, it had no h sound, so it is what it is. Now for diphthongs, the breathing mark is above the second vowel. For example, think about the word eulogetes. Eulogetos. Where would the breathing mark go? Again, it's a smooth breathing. Eulogetos means blessed. That smooth breathing symbol would be on top of the U instead of top of the A. Another example, think about the word heurisko. Heurisko would be the rough breathing is over the upsilon or the U sound. In case of R and U as initial letters, R and U as initial letters, both will always carry the rough breathing. The rough breathing sound will not be pronounced with the R. So rema. There will not be a rema, just simply rema. Finally, with regards to capital letters, as initial vowels, for example, think about the name Abram, okay, for Abraham. Where would you put the smooth breathing? The smooth breathing will come before the initial vowel. So there you have it, not on top, but before the initial vowel. Now again, keep in mind, in Koine and modern Greek, the breathing marks are not pronounced. So why did we go over this whole lesson? Just to help you understand, when you see those markings in classical and Erasmian pronunciation, they would carry. The rough breathing would have the h sound. The smooth breathing would not have the h sound. But in Koine and modern pronunciation, rough readings don't mean anything. So just keep that in mind. Those pronunciations are important. Now, Iota Subscript. What is the Iota Subscript? Sometimes the long vowels, 3 of them, okay? A, and O. They sometimes are combined with the E or iota. Keep in mind that in my lessons, we memorize the alphabets not by their titles, but by their sounds. So it's not alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon. It's more a, b, g, d, a, z, eta, e, kalamana, xa, o, parasata, u, fi, ki, psi, o. So when I go over these things, I'm not going to call this alpha or eta or omega. It's going to be a, o. And the reason for that, if you go back and watch the video on the alphabets, is to help us find the words quicker, of course, in the lexicons. If you go by titles, it takes a while. But if you know them by their sounds, you can quickly get to them and find the words just like you would an American English Heritage Dictionary or the Oxford Dictionary. You can get right to the words because you know the sounds. Also, you will realize very quickly how it is easier to start reading Greek. We're not going to wait till halfway in the semester to start reading the sentences in Greek. You will be starting very soon, maybe by the end of today's lesson. So keep that in mind. But again, going back to Iota Subscript. Sometimes the long vowels are combined with an iota, and it's called an kind of an improper diphthong. When 2 vowels come together, it's a diphthong. But if a long vowel comes together with an iota or an e, it's called an improper or an ancient diphthong. But how do we write it? The Iota Subscript. So it comes underneath the vowel. Underneath. And so that's called an Iota Subscript. And that E sound is not pronounced, usually not pronounced. Let me give you a couple of examples. Think about the Greek word arche. Arche, beginning. But it has the Iota Subscript right underneath. But we don't say archei, it's simply arche, that's it. Another example would be auto. Again, we don't pronounce it, but it's there. An improper or ancient diphthong. One more example, a couple more maybe, just so we can remember this. Te, the Iota Subscript is silent. Or Scotia. The Iota Subscript goes under the alpha or the a, and it's not pronounced. Okay? Now, the third thing we're going to look at in this section on signs, we focused on breathing marks, we focused on the Iota Subscript, but the third thing is accents. So there are 3 accents in the Greek language. 3. The first one is known as the acute accent. The acute accent. Acute accent goes, kind of looks like the breathing mark without the dot on the top, and it's slanted towards the word. Okay, so it would be like, for example, a word like this. We slanted this way. Another example would be the grave. Another accent is the grave accent. Grave, not grave, but grave. The grave accent is just the opposite. It goes like this. Almost think of it as dragging its feet, okay? So that is the grave accent. And then one more, which is the circumflex. And circumflex comes in two ways. Sometimes it is going to be like this, depends on which font is being used. Sometimes it is like that. Typically, accents don't matter. In fact, most of the times you will ignore them. But sometimes they do matter. Here's an example where it does matter. Think about the word A, or E, really. If it has a smooth breathing, keep in mind the smooth breathing will be, this is the diphthong, it's going to be on the second vowel, so it'll be like this. What does that mean? A is simply if. But what if it's like this? Then it becomes you are. So other than the circumflex on top of the smooth breathing, which is on top of the second vowel in this diphthong, other than that circumflex, you wouldn't know if this is if or you are. So that's the difference between if and you are. Most of the times, the accents will not matter. Few times they do. And this is one of those times. Finally, punctuation. There are 4 punctuation marks in the Greek language. Of course, comma and period are exactly the same as in English. So 2 down, but there are 2. The first one is a colon, and colon in Greek is represented with just a dot that is raised up, or a period that is higher. So that right there would be a colon. The second one is question mark. How is the question mark written in Greek? Question mark in Greek is a semicolon in English. So for punctuation, comma and period are exactly the same. Colon does not have the second dot below the top one, and question mark is a semicolon. And it seems a little confusing, but the more we begin to read and look at Greek over and over again, it's not that difficult, and we catch on pretty quickly. This is today's lesson on the signs. We focused on the breathing marks, the Iota Subscript, the accents, and the punctuation marks.